Thanks again for joining this webinar today on the topic 3 reasons why you should be thinking about RSO along with RPA. So I'm Krishna from Unlock Insights. Today we have with us our speakers Ramakrishna from Unlock Insights and Uday Josh from Enate. So during the webinar, if you guys have any questions, please free to type your questions in the question box, and speakers will try to answer it at the end of the session. I hope you all will enjoy the session. I'm now handing it over to our speaker, one of the speaker, Ramakrishna from Unlock Insights.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Krishna. Today's agenda is why we shall consider RSO in parallel with RPA. So, for most of our customers and most of the audiences, RSO is a new concept. Right now, what's happening is most companies are implementing robotic process automation, and all these RPA products come with an orchestrator that manages and that orchestrates the bots. But RSO is an innovative concept that actually makes both both RPA and the human workforce work on one or multiple processes either sequentially or parallelly. So that is what we're going to show you, how RSO is going to benefit the automation implementations and why we shall consider RSO in parallel with RPA. So that's going to be the primary theme of today's discussion. Okay. About us, Krishna, can you go to the next slide, please? Unlock Insights is a sister company of Comtech. We've been in business for 22 years, primarily providing IT solutions and services in the digital transformation space, application development space, and infrastructure services space for both enterprise and government agencies. In terms of Unlock Insights, we specialize on robotic process automation, cognitive automation services, also artificial intelligence and machine learning aspect of things. Okay. The services from Unlock Insights includes primarily the strategy and consulting. Then once we strategize, once we understand what we want to automate and what we want to do, then we help implement, and we also do the managed automation services on top of it. Okay. One differentiation of us compared with our competitions or anybody in the market space is a bot factory. Okay. We have an R&D center creating these bots, solving a lot of problems. For example, it could be as mundane as invoice processing to the email triage, to service ticket triage, to any artificial intelligence based kind of bots. Okay. And this our bot factory develops reusable bots, and these reusable bots can be implemented in multiple processes without retesting or without recoding of these bots. Our focus areas in terms of industries, primary focus areas are BFSI, then manufacturing, and the utilities and energy is in the BPO area. We do a lot of work in it, and we have done a reasonably decent amount of work in retail space as well. Okay. In terms of horizontals, we do AR, AP, GL, and operations also, automation of these horizontal areas. Okay. Krishna, next slide. I request Uday to talk about Enate and himself. Uday, you.
Thank you, RK. Hi all, my name is Uday. Let me just kind of give a little bit of background first around why we are as a business where we are. So if you see the context of any service delivery or any operations environment where there are a lot of processes being managed with a lot of people, then there are lots of issues there already in terms of visibility, in terms of managing how things are happening, measuring the productivity of individuals, how work has to be shunted around between them, so on and so forth. And getting a clean and lean operation going there itself is already a challenge. And going forward, as these digital resources are also coming into the market, so various types of bots, be it RPA, be it cognitive bots, um, uh, this is only going to compound the problem. I mean, with humans, you can still interact and manage and understand how things are happening. But once you have an estate which has got some human resources, some digital resources, and within digital RPA, cognitive, image recognition, NLP, so many types of things, and then your underlying line of business systems as well. The question is, how do you kind of manage to run and keep your focus as a business on the high quality of service you're delivering? And that's how Enate as a business, we decided we should start proactively trying and managing and solving these problems for businesses, because they will become more and more complicated as these technologies make it into the market. So Enate's robotic service orchestration, or what we call RSO platform, is essentially the layer which manages the orchestration and execution of a process across all these underlying resource bases: humans, digital workers, underlying systems, and brings it all together into one seamless layer. That's what Enate is about. So anyway, we'll get into a little bit more as we go ahead, so things should be clearer. RK, back to you.
My role at Unlock Insights, I'm a business head here. I take care of both business development, go-to-market, including the delivery and operations for Unlock Insights when it comes to RPA. Okay. Krishna, next.
So my name is Uday. So I work with Enate as a board member of the main business, and I also run the India part of the business for Enate. I'm based out of Bangalore, and my job essentially requires me to spend a lot of time with businesses which are in various stages of RPA implementation, and get feedback. And a lot of what I do is drive all of that back into our product and try and enhance that. In terms of what all we do out of India, pretty much a bunch of the things as a product business, whatever we would need. So engineering support, implementation, all of that also runs out of here. Krishna, we can move on.
Okay. The biggest question, the most asked question when we talk to prospects and customers is, what is RSO and how does it differ from RPA? Is one of the questions I get asked very frequently. So I just wanted to touch upon both of these concepts in this slide. RPA is a technology basically used to develop the digital workforce. Okay, and this digital workforce imitates humans, and it is also called, sometimes people call it as software robo, and sometimes called as bot. But whether it's a software robo or bot or digital workforce, they all do the same thing. What it does is it mimics human worker. Okay? For example, it can log into an application, it can enter the data, it can do some calculations if required, it can complete the tasks, for example, uploading a file, or executing a job, or doing an email. So these kind of tasks, it can autonomous tasks, it can complete the tasks, and it could log out from the application. So you have a process. For example, you have a invoice creation process. So bot could log in to ERP, can create an invoice based on the goods issue, then it can email the invoice to a customer, then it can actually log out from the system. So these kind of tasks, which are repetitive and rule driven, all these processes can be done by these bots, and this is called the robotic process automation. Okay. Now we talk about RSO. Back to you.
So if you look at a business process which is a combination of a bunch of tasks, then there are some of the activities in that business process which are suitable to give to an RPA bot, which essentially are transactional in nature, so following basic rules. So open a form like RK just described, put it into the system, and then log out. And then there are some activities in that business process which might require some cognitive capability. For example, if it's more than, if it's of this particular customer and more than so and so amount, then we want to make a business decision based on some XYZ factor, and we basically want to put it in front of a human being to take that kind of a decision. So if you look at an end-to-end business process like that, what that really means is some things can go to an RPA bot, some things can go to which might need to go to a human, and there might be other scenarios where you might want to even, let's say an email has come in, and you want to put that in front of an NLP bot. So if you look at a process with so many different types of tasks, then what RSO is basically about is allowing you to mix all of these different types of technologies into one end-to-end, end-to-end layer, and then give the specific task to each one of these types of technologies, and bring back the output from there and manage the handoffs between all of this seamlessly. So what that means is, let me just elaborate that example a bit. So what that means is, let's say an email comes in, you want to take that email, put it in front of a human user who might read it, decide what needs to be done with it, then pass it on to a bot, which might then go do some transaction with it, then move it, on to, let's say, send out an email to a customer, and this entire series of activities is what RSO lets you do. So RSO then becomes in control of which resource does what task, where in the process, and why. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about what the orchestration element of RSO is. The second problem which you need to solve in such a landscape is your governance across the human and the bot workforce. Now, a lot of businesses I talk to have a little bit of a concern around, the risk which is developing. For example, there are a lot of humans in their service going and doing a lot of different things at different corners of the system and of the service. And now there are also digital workers which are making a lot of changes here and there. So over time, if you wanted to simplify your governance and you want a single view of who's changing what, when, why, and where, and have an entire auditable log, how do you do that? So what Enate provides you is a single governance layer where you can track everything, all the work which is being done in your system, all the resources which are in play, who's doing what, when, why, and where, measure all of that, and report and manage all of that. So that's kind of a second view about a simplified, standardized single governance view. And the last thing is about how you can expand your automation operation. But I think we'll see that down in a later slide, because one of the things which an RSO platform also does, it starts tracking various types of metrics in terms of effort, in terms of cost, every time you do each activity, and that can give you some invaluable insights into what is the next best thing to automate once you're done with some of the easily identifiable ones. So I think that's all we'll cover here, and then let's move forward. Unless RK, you want to come in?
Yeah, there's one of the questions I keep getting asked when I'm doing talking to customers or doing consulting is governance. That's one of the biggest questions. We already have governance model in place with various applications, and we already have a log management which keeps track of what's getting changed, who has logged in, who is making the change, what happened. So all this already in place. So what is the value that RSO is bringing to table when the existing log management solution that I have addresses that problem? So how do we effectively answer that question?
Okay, so let me put it like this: if you have, let's say, three or four different technologies which are being used throughout your customers uh, journey for solving the requests which they have, or while you're serving them, each system, let's say there's an ERP, there's a bot system, there's a some other kind of file management system, so on and so forth, then each of those systems has always and usually got some kind of a technical log from their perspective, as in who logged in, what was changed, which are all individual and isolated in various different pockets. Now, this is a standard problem which is there in many businesses, that you have a lot of disconnect and disparate data, But if you want a simplified view or an MI type of thing which you need to do something with, then a lot of effort and time needs to be spent on manually managing and getting all that data together into a meaningful form. That's one. And the second thing is, if you wanted to look at the journey of, let's say, one piece of work which you did for a customer from that customer's viewpoint, in the sense what happened when, where, which technology made what change, which human did what thing, and how, what was the time each set of activities was done, then you can get that simplified single view from one particular place itself. So let's say a customer calls in and is talking to one of your FTEs and making a request. Then with one click, you can analyze everything centrally across all your underlying tech bases. Does that make sense?
So what you mean to say is, just want to paraphrase what I understand. So what you mean to say is, in case of, for example, call center scenario or customer support scenario. So when customer sends a complaint, either in an email or via chat, he should be able to see the life cycle of that complaint from his from his desk. Am I correct using this RSO?
Absolutely. So if that is a call center or that kind of a scenario. However, this theme where you need to get a simple view of a piece of work is there in any process environment. It does not have to be a call center or that kind of environment. The point is that one piece of work, if you want to look at it from that particular issues point of view, what all has changed over the last through the journey of the issue, then you can get that entire audit log in one place.
Okay. And this could be across the systems, it could be across the processes.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. One question one of the attendees has just sent it, that we already have a orchestrator from UiPath. Uh, why should I buy RSO? How is it different?
Okay, so so every bot vendor also packages some kind of a orchestrator environment which manages their bots, so or a control room which is managing their bots, and that is kind of a tactical solution meant to manage the specific bots which that vendor sells. Now, a business, however, is not about running bots and managing bots. A business is about actually getting some work done, right? And work actually involves a bunch of things: managing the humans in the work, managing the work itself in terms of managing all your SLAs and all correctly, managing the bots as well, and doing all of that in a way that improves the customer experience which you're giving as a business. Now, what Enate does is it orchestrates the service as a whole, and all these underlying things are incidental to the service. So Enate's focus is shifts the business focus from managing, let's say, 3 or 4 bots or 10, 15 bots or however many bots are running, to one step above and managing the service. Right? So you can orchestrate your humans along with the bots, not just the bots, and the process as well.
Okay. Okay, so there's another relevant question by audience is RSO using any external cloud services in addition to the tool? Can you mention the tool?
Is RSA using any external cloud services?
Yeah.
Okay, so now how Enate the default, I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but let me try and answer what I understand. Is this a cloud-based solution? Is that the question?
Um, yes, I think that's the
Yeah.
question.
So essentially, the default way in which we sell RSO is as a SaaS based service. So essentially, all your bots and resources are able to connect to the SaaS service, and everything is managed from the SaaS platform. However, there is also an on-prem version available for businesses which are not able to get on SaaS, and the coming to I'm not sure if part of the question was also around third party technologies and stuff like that, but let me just kind of cover that since we are here as well. The Enate as an orchestration layer does not have any of its own RPA or any of its own OCR and specialist technology capability. Enate is the layer which brings all of the best of breeds from all of these places into one layer. it does not have these, and it does that through third-party vendors. So you could take a UiPath bot, you could take an automation bot, automation anywhere bot, you could take a Blue Prism bot, and you could fuse all three of them into one business process in different tasks. So we use third-party apps like that. It's deployed through the cloud and is available on-prem as well. Back to you, RK.
Yeah, Uday, one of the questions is RSO can be made available out of Google Cloud? Is it possible?
Can RSO be made available out of Google Cloud?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't understand the question, but if we are talking about a hosted platform which you own, yes, it can be.
Okay. I'm trying to. Okay. Okay. Krishna, can you unmute audience so that he can ask the question directly? Hello,
Can
Krishna.
I suggest you want to take questions now, RK, or should we take questions at the end of the webinar?
We could take another webinar, but the relevant question, that's why I was asking, but it could be taken later also. Okay. Krishna, let's go to next one, please.
Okay. Shall I, RK, or do you
Yeah,
want to?
please. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I think what we'll do is just I think 2 or 3 slides more. I know there are a lot of questions, but what we can do is we'll just go through these 2 or 3 slides, and what will happen with that is I think it'll also shed some more light on RSO, and then we can move on to questions. So the first reason is why RSO along with RPA. And I think one of the key reasons is that you can quite easily go beyond the low-hanging fruit. So lots of times in in RPA projects, the POC goes well. There's some quick consulting and some easy areas identified fast, and then you do a business case and deploy RPA. But then very soon you start then coming across a challenge as to where could we gain more value out of it, where are the next places we could automate, and then you have a lot of pressure from the bot companies as well about how many licenses you need and how much should you buy, various types of negotiations like that as well. And the question is, how do you actually make sure that the bots you already have, you are utilizing them more and in control of how many license you really need? And how RSO helps you, lets you do this is essentially with RSO, there are some default principles which I will just talk about now. Is you can essentially give any piece of work to a bot which it is trained to do. If it is a simple piece of work, the bot will execute it. If it's a complicated piece of work, automatically it is flipped back into a human, into the human world, and the bot will come back saying, look, I can't do this piece of work. Mr. Human, can you help me with this piece of work? And then the human can do that piece of work. And what that kind of toing and froing and seamless interaction between humans and bots lets you do is that it lets you automate a lot of the simple flows across a large base of processes. So what that means is you're going to end up taking out 20, 30, 40, 50% from a lot of different processes, even the ones which are somewhat complex, because the complex processes also have some flows which are straightforward. And where it fails, you then automatically flip it back to the human world, and the human gets in and does the work. So with that kind of an arrangement, you are basically looking at going a large and spreading wide rather than trying to do something extremely deep and narrow into one process, which has traditionally been the way. Now, the other thing is a lot of times you have to make decisions around where RPA will bring in the most value. And since RSO has got a view of what is it costing you to deliver a process today based on your human resources and based on whatever is currently being done in that, you can make the same measurement post your RPA deployment, and you can prove the business case that look, before we were spending X amount of money on it, and now it's become Y. So this is what saving we have generated, and you can take those proof points back to the business. So that's your kind of first reason, that it helps you basically do more. It also, sorry, let me just cover one last thing as well. It also gives you, the ability to do things which you may find slightly challenging otherwise. Things like share bots easily between teams, give the operations users control to, mix bots into different teams based on demand, without any reliance on technical users. So all of this from GUI-based interface, just like you would manage humans. So ops users can ask a bot to go and work for 4 or 5 different processes just for the day, and then you basically loan out the bot and then bring the bot in and manage your overall utilization better. So various things like that. So that's the first reason. Go above and beyond what you traditionally do with RPA, above and beyond low-hanging fruit. So RK, do you want to come in here, or shall we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, there is a question here on what is next for automation. He's asking if you could give an example.
What is next for
Next
automation?
for, yeah, that's the third point from the top in the slide.
Okay, so I think so if this is next, what is next for automation? Okay, so essentially, if you look at the kind of metrics which an RSO platform will give you, it will tell you things like, if we are doing these 40 or 50 different types of tasks in this team, out of those, the most expensive tasks are this one, and that one. So it'll, let's say, point out 3 of those tasks as the most expensive one, which are taking the most amount of time and costing you the most amount of money. It will also give you things like what is the standard deviation on those. So you might find a task which is being done, 50% of the time all your team is working on one task, and that task is got a very low standard deviation, which basically means it sometimes is being done in 5 minutes, sometimes you're taking 6 minutes, but you're pretty much within those margins. Now, what that is telling you is that if you wanted to decide what is the next thing you should apply an RPA type of bot on, then that task would be ideal and suitable. So it gives you some kind of guidance like this, which helps you plan your automation uh, step by step, eating more and more of the tasks out of your processes. Okay, does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. Krishna, next slide, please. Yeah. So that take it over.
Okay. Now, second reason is that, see, if you think about traditionally, if you think about what RPA has been about, it's been about, and even now to a large extent, it's about cost saving from from a internal business's perspective. So it's costing us this much of money, but if we to run our operation, but if we deploy some bots, we can reduce our cost. But then when you're building so much of automation, when you're heavily invested in it, and as a business you are looking to uh, you know uh, you're looking to improve internally, then why not do it in a way that actually impacts your customers experience and your customers journey as well? And what I mean by that is, all of this deployment into automation should eventually affect the experience your customer is getting out of engaging with you as a business. And that's another thing which RSO lets you do really well. So if you look at the screen, there are a couple of graphs on there. So in one instance, and these are real metrics from one of the real implementations, and one of the most striking ones is the blue graph on the left side, which is an 80% reduction in internal processing time. So if you think of a process which is made up of many different tasks and a lot of handoffs, and traditionally what is being done in pure RPA environments is that people will put a lot of things into, let's say, into some kind of a log or Excel, and then there'll be a lot of manual touch points. Somebody will then feed it into a bot, whether they are assisted or whether they are remote bots, and then the bot will do something. Then it'll again go to, let's say, if the bot fails some things, then somebody will again move it to in some businesses they call them L1 support, where people will then go through the entire bot log, feed it back, correct it, send it back. And by the time all of these handoffs and everything, completes and a response goes to the customer, there's a lot of wasted time and effort and energy, wasted in the sense slow, delayed responses each and every step, which then feeds back to the entire experience of the customer. So in this example, that whole journey from a customer initiating a request to getting a response and the time it took internally was reduced by about 80%. Now imagine that from a customer's perspective, I raised something today, I could either get back a response after 3 days or I could get back a response after like 5 hours, which is phenomenal. And that's what RSO can let you do. Another item on the right is a lot of times because of the non-lean and clean orchestration and the way processes are managed with a lot of manual intervention, lots of times teams end up spending extended hours to catch up based on various cutoff dates, based on various things which have to be done. And another advantage of RSO is that since everything is streamlined and everything is automated, including interactions and handoffs between humans and bots, this also means you're optimizing and managing your resources better, both your humans and your bots, and you can in fact report on those as well, quite in a similar fashion. So how much capacity did the bot have, how much time was it actually utilized versus a human, how is the productivity, how much time was lost in transit, all those kinds of things. So with that, what happens is overall you end up, in this example, a 75% reduction was experienced in the overtime component which the business was paying. So that's reason 2. Any questions on that, RK, or anyone, or shall we move on?
Yeah, so what you mean to say is the reduction in processing time would improve the process efficiencies that would lead to the improved customer experience and customer satisfaction. And the reduction in overall time and reduction in overtime would save the cost. So you're accomplishing increased customer experience and customer satisfaction at the lower cost. That's the gist
Absolutely.
of this. That's the gist of this slide, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Krishna, next slide, please. Uday, to you.
Okay. So this is where this is a quick look at governance and what it means to manage everything on one platform. So now, if you see the screen, this is a view from the actual product. And what you're seeing in the center of the screen is all the pieces of work. All those line items are all the pieces of work which are currently running in your service environment. On the right top, as somebody who owns the team, you can see that you've got 6 individuals. On the left top, you can see your team is also got 4 bots in it. So that's Data, Jinx, Crichton, and Marvin. These are the bots in your team. At the right bottom, there are 2 bot farms. So as part of the business processes you own, you also own 2 different technology bot farms. You own a UiPath bot farm and a Automation Anywhere bot farm. If you look on top of the bots, there's a yellow band which tells you that your bot team has got 1 hour 30 minutes of work remaining. Now this is really important data because this can start giving you a lot of insight about whether you can start looking at other places in your processes you can automate, or as a team, do you really need 4 bots, or are 2 enough if you manage your work and organize it in a way that you can utilize the bots for double the time throughout the day. You can take various decisions like that as a business. Now the other couple of things are, if you look down at the work assignments, you can see from your ops environment itself which bots are currently working on which pieces of work, just like you would see for a human. If you can click one of these bots and see what the bot is working on, just like you can click on a human here and see what the human is actively working on. Now other things are like if the bot environment goes down, if a bot is taking too long to process, if something has gone wrong with your infrastructure, the RSO platform will automatically route all those pieces of work into the human world till that outage is fixed. So a robust governance environment also gives you the ability to manage an outage without impacting your customers' experience and making sure things are getting done on time. So that's a little bit around a high-level view on governance. Any questions on that? Hello, Krishna,
Yeah,
shall
there
we
are
just?
no. Yeah,
Okay.
Krishna, next slide, please. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
So, okay. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of the webinar. So I think the let me just consolidate by saying that a lot of businesses which have started, which have done, POCs, pilots and all last year, have now started to adopt bots in a larger scale. And a lot of them, as they are going through this journey, are discovering a lot of issues around the management, governance, handoffs between bots and humans. What if bots fail? How do you know manage the seamlessness of interactions? How do you utilize bot licenses better? So a lot of things which businesses are coming across, and all of those aspects which are not being addressed by a specialist bot vendor. And a lot of businesses are also, some if you look at the the bigger businesses, then they are all starting to write some kind of hacked and put together in-house tool to manage all of those gaps. And RSO is really about that. So you've got a product as an RPA which mimics a human, and then you got a product which is a layer on top which lets you plug and play all of these different types of bots, vendors, people's bots, people, ERPs, everything, so that you get one unified view, and you can circumvent and solve all of these problems before you kind of hit them when you start scaling. So that's what RSO is really about. Um, my contact details and RK's contact details are on screen. If anybody would like to know more, then please feel absolutely free to reach out, and we'll be glad to go over more detail. RK?
There's one question here by the audience is that typically what is the ROI or net present value one can derive by investment in RSO?
Okay, so there are two or three aspects I think which we need to talk about to address that. One is, there is, you can as a business actually do an RPA deployment itself and get some ROI. You can as a business do an RSO deployment by itself without bots and basically streamline and improve your human operation itself and get some ROI. And how you get that ROI is by absolutely eliminating everything which is done manually in a lot of businesses. Things like you've got people sitting and just looking at mailboxes waiting for something to come in to then take that and start a piece of work. You've got people sitting and looking at, let's say, FTP locations to for something to be dropped there so that they can pick up and do stuff. You've got managers who are collating all of these things which are coming in into big Excels, getting their teams together, dishing out work, then manually tracking all those pieces of work, and every time an email comes in, checking which piece of work is being done by whom, and then updating them, managing all the SLAs and all against all of this manually. Essentially, all of these things go away if you have a good RSO platform deployed, because the platform then takes ownership of all of these things. They are no longer Excel's logs, trackers, people sitting around looking at what kind of work should be started when. You don't have to manage any of the timeliness data, so on and so forth. Now if you have a combination of the two, however, RSO plus RPA, then you're essentially getting a lean business and better utilized resources, and the ROI on that is better than any one of them by itself. And we have some mathematical models to work that out as well. So if there's a situation which is of particular interest, we can plug in the numbers and build a case out of it. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, it should. Another question from another audience is it an integration, RSO and RPA? Is it a technical integration, or how does it integration work?
Okay, so there are two types of integrations we do. One is called lightweight integration, and the other one is called deep integration. Both are basically different levels of integration. So the lightweight integration is essentially a bot technology or any other kind of external technology accessing and managing and reporting back into Enate through standard web services. Now, what happens with that is really when you are implementing the target technology which you want to orchestrate, you have to follow a basic pattern, which is the technology comes to Enate, asks Enate for the next most critical thing as a business, which it should do, and then Enate pulls out a piece of work and for which it is that resource type is authorized, and Enate then dishes it a piece of work. That resource goes away, completes the piece of work, and comes back and reports one of three things. One is that it succeeded, one is that it failed with a reason, and one is that it just rejected it because it didn't have the skills to do it, right? And then the RSO platform then takes it and then does whatever is appropriate with it. Now that is what we call light integration, and light integration is actually sufficient to do most things. Then you have, and there's no kind of much technical integration there except the target technology has to consume a web service call from Enate. Now there's another type of integration called deep integration, and that is where the two product companies have to make changes so that the two different technologies can do more together. And that is, for example, something which we have done with, let's say, UiPath. So with UiPath, there is the Enate is tightly integrated, deeply integrated with the orchestrator. And what that means is that Enate can do some additional activities like going and asking an orchestrator to wake up a bot and ask the bot to come and pick up a piece of work, or automatically, for example, let's say you've got 50 bots running in an environment, then just point Enate to the orchestrator and the orchestrator to Enate, and automatically all these bots are set up as users instantly, and then they can all be immediately used in the service environment to start giving work out. So there are some added advantages to having deep integration where the products are actually, both businesses have changed their products to engage better, but you don't actually need that. With light integration you can literally do most things, so it's not really a code based integration, it's basically just a web service call. If hopefully that answers the question.
So then, do you anticipate what kind of challenges are expected or you come across in light integration area?
So most of the challenges are really not to do with the technologies. They are mostly to do with, with a lot of companies have got a lot of policy challenges in, allowing connectivity. I think most of the, the bigger the business, the bigger the hurdles when it comes to various types of things from infosec perspective, from IT perspective. Those are mostly the areas. From a standard integration point of view, it is simply a standard web service, which is a very very common and well used protocol. So there is nothing really hard about that. Coming to deep integration, I wouldn't call this a challenge, but usually you have to different technologies have got different architectures, and both sides architects have to decide which are the correct touch points and what is the value bringing functionality by going above and beyond simple integration. So I mean that's really about it. There's nothing much more to say about that. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. A couple of them asked us if we can show a quick demo of this now. The answer to this is we cannot show the demo at this point of time, but we'll arrange a session with you and where we can go one-to-one demo and answer any questions you may have on the solution.
Sure.
Um, that brings the end of the webinar. Any other questions from any audience? If there are, please you may you may send them right now in the chat, or you could send an email to the email address listed here. And so let's wait for a couple of minutes if there are any questions. Okay, so there are no questions, and I thank you all the audience and Uday. Krishna. Thank you all for coming, and we will be emailing you the recorded version of the webinar. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And you can send an email or you can call us. The numbers are listed here. Thank you all for joining, and thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Uday and RK. Thanks everyone for joining this session. As RK told, we'll be sending you the recording session to your respective email IDs. Have a great day. Thanks once again. Bye bye.